Well, it's interesting because I come from a totally, I would say, other cinema. I'm not so much into Hollywood's big productions. I actually come from documentary, or more maybe French naturalistic cinema, or creative documentaries. So for me, it was a challenge to work in something that is so precise, and you really have to be spot on with the dynamic and the tension and all this. So I watched a few films like James Bond and stuff like that that I actually don't watch normally. And yeah, there's some. My own references would be maybe Taxi Driver for the car scene, or Suspiria, but not really, but just as an inspiration how you can go really colorful in lighting the nights. And then Guy Ritchie for maybe more the dynamics. And yes, I think that's the inspiration we had. Yeah, and try to own it after and make your own thing. It's interesting. Yeah. I think the best part is shooting, for sure. Yes, the process of shooting, just being behind the camera, and for me, framing is my favorite part for sure, where I feel the more comfortable actually, because then everything gets together. But for that to happen, of course, there's a lot of preparation. In this case, especially when it's a fiction that is so written, and you have to be really precise with lights and framing and movements and everything. So this was the hard part, I would say, for me, was the découpage itself. It's super exciting, but at the same time, it's so much things you have to project on only with your mind, you know, because you don't know how it's going to look. So for me, I'm just stressed at this process, but I also enjoy doing it with Linus. And what was nice in this case is Linus has a very strong idea. He came to me with some sort of storyboard already, some scenes. He knew already what he wanted. And for me, as a director of photography, it's really nice to work with someone that already has an idea of how it should look or what would make sense. And if I had a doubt, he would sometimes reassure me and say, you will see, it's going to work in the edit. I already see the scene and the rhythm there, and I think this was super enjoyable.
Were there any, sorry?
Yeah, just to continue, maybe what was super nice for me in the process of the découpage or solving these shots, it's the fact that I was able to go to the rehearsing. So it was in another room, but they were rehearsing with the actors around the table, and I could really see, because before that you're not sure how they're going to move around. And the fact I could see, I would just film with my phone or take photos, and there, I remember I watched the photos afterward, and we did exactly the same, like, okay, shot, counter shot, the two bad guys are going to cover the frame on the side as Amorce, and he's going to be here, and then he moves, he takes her. And this already worked in a blank room, and then we transposed that to the location, and it worked perfectly. So it's super enjoyable to do that. The most challenging part was probably all the scene in the car, because we didn't have so much time, and we were depending on the sun. I mean, it was a night shoot, and we had to be done before the sunrise, right? And we had some technical issues with the car itself, because actually at first we were supposed to have a scene where the car moves. She arrives, basically the car arrives in the shot, and we lost a bit of time there. So then it was a bit stressful to be able to put up all the shots we had in the découpage. And yeah, it was just, the time there was hard. And also, we spent a lot of time lighting it, and we couldn't come beforehand to pre-light because you're waiting that it's dark, so you see how the lights look, right? And yeah, I think it's where it got a bit complicated. Yeah. I mean, the difference, it's so different. First, I think what I really enjoyed in fiction now is that, or in narratives, yeah, is that you can go so much further creatively when you work with other people. Like working with a gaffer for me is so great. So the light designer, it was an amazing step up for me to be able to build an image with someone else, and also of course with a director. And yeah, as many creative minds get together, as further you can go. So this is something great. And also all the preparation is a bit like painting. You know, you like all these steps to get to like a super creative result. I like that. But then in documentaries, I really enjoy being spontaneous, because I come from that, or I come from photography actually. And just being able to get inspired on the spot and spontaneously is it's how naturally I work. So I think it's yeah, it's two very different things, but I enjoy, and I enjoy when I can actually try to combine both to have the freedom to be spontaneous on set. But the big problem for that is time, mostly, for fiction, I think. So yeah.
So you first started with photographs,
Yes.
and then you went into.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, exactly. I started as a photographer, and I think it's quite a lonely job to be a photographer. And I started to participate on sets as a assistant or different position, and then I discovered exactly what I said before: how further you can go when you have a crew, and like also just the atmosphere on set to work with people. It's really
So
something I enjoy.
is it okay, fair to say that you kind of fell in love with film at some point?
Yes, yeah. I don't come from that. I wasn't such a cinephile, or I don't come from a family that watched films at all. So I was just discovering, and I'm learning so much at the moment. So it's it's quite nice. Yes, as a director of photography, the next thing I will do is scouting for a feature documentary that's happening in the States, in South Dakota. So we will normally, if everything goes well, scout next spring. So it's really the beginning of the process. And normally we might work together with Linus in the future for a short film. What else? I'm writing myself as a director also. In documentary, yeah, right now. And my documentary, it's about a guy that is called Ruisseau, and he lives in Madagascar, and he's building right now a house made of bricks in the middle of a tiny village of traditional wooden houses. And it's about the evolution of sceneries and landscapes, and how modernity arrives in this tiny village that is super remote with no electricity, and his struggle to build this house, and what it means for him to use these new materials and like step out of tradition to embrace modernity kind of, and what it tells about this place basically.